Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Atika Nailil Uyun. Now I will explain about good governance in civic education. So the concept of governance is not new. It is as old as human civilization. Governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented. And analysis of governance focuses on the formal and informal actors involved in decision making and implementing the decisions made, and the formal and informal structures that have been set in place to arrive at and implement the decision. Governance can be used in several contexts such as corporate governance, international governance, national governance, and local governance. All actors other than government and the military are grouped together as part of the civil society. So move to the next definition of the good governance. The definition of good governance is the responsible and credible management of a country from various aspects, including political, social, administrative, to economic and financial aspects. If a harmonious relationship is created between society, industry, and government, then this is what is called good governance. So, what the good governance background? Background good governance is motivated by two things. The first one is the influence of globalization and demand for government that apply values, transparency, accountability, participation, and democracy. Good governance is oriented to the ideal orientation of the state of the achievement of national goals and an ideally functioning government. For the governance, stakeholders are state or government, private sector, and civil society. So the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, that good governance have 9 principles that must be applied and developed in good governance. It is participatory, consensus-oriented, accountability, transparency, responsive, effectiveness and efficient, equitable and inclusive, and the last one is follows the rule of law. So the first one is participation. Participation by both men and women is a key cornerstone of good governance. Participation could be either direct or through legitimate intermediate institution or representative. It is important to point out that representative democracy does not inevitably mean that the concern of the most vulnerable in society will be taken into consideration in decision making. Participation needs to be informed and organized. This means freedom of association and expression on the one hand and an organized civil society on the other hand. So the second one is consensus oriented. There are several actors and as many viewpoints in a given society. Good governance requires mediation of the different interests in society to reach a broad consensus in society on what is in the best interest of the whole community and how this can be achieved. It also requires a broad and long-term perspective on what is needed for sustainable human development and how to achieve the goals of such development. This can only result from an understanding of the historical, cultural, and social context of a given society or community. For the number 3 is accountability. Accountability is a key requirement of good governance. Not only governmental institutions but also the private sector and the civil society organization must be accountable to the public and to their institutional stakeholders, who is accountable to whom varies depend on whether decisions or actions taken are internal or external to an organization or institution. In general, an organization or an institution is accountable to those who will be affected by its decision or actions. Accountability cannot be enforced without transparency and the rule of law. So the next is transparency. Transparency means the decisions taken and their enforcement are done in a manner that follows rule and regulation. It also means that information is freely available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by such decision and their enforcement. It is also means that enough information is provided and that is provided in easily understandable forms and media. Number 5 is responsiveness. Good governance requires the institution and processes try to serve all stakeholders within a reasonable time frame. Number 6, effectiveness and efficiency. Good governance means that processes and institutions produce results that meet the needs of society while making the best use of resources at their disposal. The concept of efficiency in the context of good governance also covers the sustainable use of natural resources and the protection of the environment. Number 7 is equity and inclusiveness. A society's well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream of society. This requires all groups, but particularly the most vulnerable have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. The last one is rule of law. Good governance requires fair legal frameworks that are enforced impartially. It also requires full protection of human rights, particularly those of minorities. Impartial enforcement of laws require an independent judiciary and an impartial and incorruptible police force. So, for the next one is about the basic characteristic of a good governance. So the first one is recognize the spirit of pluralism and high tolerance attitude, upholding the principles of democracy. Move to the next is how to apply the principles of good governance to the public sector. The first one is monetary stability, handling the impact of the monetary crisis, recapitalization of small and medium-sized companies, operational reform measures, or in other names is like monetary policy, banking system, fiscal policy, budget and debt settlement. So the last one is continuing steps into the era of globalization. So we are moved into conclusion of this discussion. For the conclusion is from the above discussion, it should be clear that good governance is an ideal which is difficult to achieve in its totality. Very few countries and societies have come close to achieving good governance in its totality. However, to ensure sustainable human development, action must be taken to work towards this ideal with the aim of making it a reality. So, I think it is enough from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.